Okay, guys, we are back with part 4
Hey.
of this codependency interview with my boyfriend. So we were kind of touching on in the last video. I noticed when I moved in with you that there was something kind of off about how you played video
Yeah.
games as opposed to me and my friends growing up.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit more backstory and perspective into the way I used to play, growing up, it was a crutch, like we were talking about. It was a way for me to escape my reality of, having to put up with my parents and their kind of dynamic and all the craziness that was happening, just like many other folks, I'm sure. It was a way for me to get into a reality. And as I was playing through these games, it wasn't just like I played one console or two and got hooked. It was like years of cultivating kind of that interest for video games. So when I was little, in grade school, like we were saying with the SNES, to middle school with the Super Nintendo, it became the Sega Genesis. Yes, I had one too. Super Nintendo 64, PlayStation, you name it, I pretty much had it console wise before PC. So all these games that would come out, I would just play it, and I bought it. PlayStation 2, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Game. I had everything, and I played through multi-console platforms, whatever this was available.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, for myself, I didn't have any drive or ambition to really do anything else. I said video games were my hobby, my interest. It was the creativity, this and that. Sure, but as I'm newly discovering now, within the past few years, there's all these different things that I'm interested in, that I never knew I was really good at until recently. And it's such an eye opener, and we'll kind of talk about what happened recently with video games and stuff of that nature. But I think that when times got rough for us, kind of going back when we first moved in together, I was still playing with my group of online game friends. I invested a lot of time into it, and my game of choice or my downfall were first-person shooters. So during odd times, I would just get up in the middle of the night and just play it. I still had my online subscription. I didn't want that to go waste. So I would just get on, mute the TV very low, and just play until like the wee hours of the morning. And it became an issue. And when it was brought up to me that, hey, you're losing out sleep, and this is all you're doing, which is true. I wasn't doing anything else. I wasn't caring or putting time into making our relationship great.
Or even taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I neglected myself, and I can imagine, me in that situation, I was also probably neglecting not only our relationship, but the pets and whatever, chores.
Yeah.
So it became an issue, and that kind of rear its ugly head again, down the line.
Throughout the years, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of noticed when, and that's how you know it's an addiction. It's like you're okay as long as you're not around it, you're fine. But then when the going gets tough, if something comes up, I do notice that you leaned a little bit too much, or you would go back.
So in my nature, just part of my personality, when things get tough, I give up on it. When things become too challenging, I don't want to see it through. I just find some sort of escape, which is video games. For some people it's drinking, sex, whatever the case is.
Gambling.
Yeah. Mine was, I would resort to this, and I would spend hours on end. So couple years ago, I would say, we were in a kind of tough situation. We had to possibly move,
Our housing situation just turned from bad to worse. And it really had nothing to do with us. It was the person who owned our house we were renting from.
Yeah, so without going into too much, financially, we rented, and we were fine. It was just They wanted to capitalize in on the market that they
And
believe.
sell the house.
Yeah,
Out from
so
under us, basically.
so we had to move, and not only were we having to be put in a situation where we legally had to protect ourselves, in case if it took a turn for the worse. It was very stressful, not only for us, but our pets and
Just for our whole family.
yeah,
Our little family that
the
we made.
dynamic.
Yeah.
Imagine this, within their legal rights as property owners, they could have a showing multiple times if you agree to it, of your place that you're living at. So you'll have strangers popping in and out, within a certain designated time, months on end, because no one wants to buy that property as long as there's renters in it,
Right.
And without you wanting to do the work to fix up that place to try to flip it, and you're selling the house as is, it's not going to happen realistically.
No. Yeah.
So I took it upon myself. We were on vacation when we found out about that.
Yeah.
It was a stressful time on top of it, and when we found out through a text message or email that, hey, I'm going to sell the house that you guys are renting from, okay, now I took it upon myself to kind of find a place for us to live in. So yeah, life stuff happens, you move on from it. I took it personal. I became hell-bent on finding a place, and I got rejections and this and that, from other applications that I submitted. I just wasn't dealing with it, the way I should. So during that time, I think Overwatch, it's a first-person shooter made by Blizzard. Really great creative game, but with Blizzard, like anything, or not just singling them out, but other games that have
Gaming company.
they specialize in certain attributes that make those games very addictive.
Highly addictive.
For myself, and not saying like you can play it and be just fine. There's people that are out there that can do it. That's great. That's awesome. They don't have a addictive nature like I do, and unfortunately, certain cues from this specific game may be very addictive to it. So during the course of this, I would use it as a crutch, and I would just play it, at hours on end.
Mm-hmm.
I would get up early in the morning and just play it. And before work, get a few rounds in, try to get that loot crate to kind of open up my unlockable. Hopefully it was a rare kind of skin or some sort of extra content that I could get. And I would just do that on end. Or on weekends while you're on your computer, we were situated in our living room, I would just play that. And
Yeah.
I would say like, I can control myself, this and that. Until we had an ultimatum. And that's where I looked into going to Al-Anon, trying to start somewhere. But it was a struggle. It wasn't easy. It was, even then I put up resistance, so.
Well, you have an addiction, so that's what happens when you have an addiction. And I just I kind of want to talk about, because I think it's important to touch on. I think a lot of people, they see video games as something that's so innocent, which is exactly why people can become so addicted to it. It's not the same as alcohol or drugs, or even gambling, where people are fully aware that you can become addicted to this. People see this as, it's for kids. It's innocent. It's this thing. And you know what? It can be that. But it can also be highly addictive, because especially what he's talking about, these games that this particular gaming company comes out with, the way that they do business through microtransactions and things like that, which means you can buy things within the game after you've already bought the game. This is nothing new. Within the last couple of years, lots of games do this, but particularly the way that they get people to be addicted to this, it is the same way that cults operate. It's the same way that a narcissist will manipulate someone. It's the same way you train a dog. It's through intermittent rewarding. So what they'll do is that the more points you get, you can kind of cash them in, or you can use your own money to buy rewards. Now, these rewards are totally random, supposedly. But what they'll do is that they'll fix the algorithms so that most of the time you'll lose, but then you'll get a really great reward suddenly, and then that will kind of whet your appetite and kind of release the happy hormones in your brain, chemicals in your brain. Yeah,
stuff,
the dopamine. and that makes you want to do it more.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing. It's kind of like when an abuser is love bombing someone, they know what they're doing. So at first they'll, oh, you're the greatest, I love you, we love all the same things, we're the greatest couple, we're soulmates. And then that will slowly decline or suddenly decline, and then every now and then they'll kind of show that again and then pull back and be really nasty. And so the target of abuse is constantly looking for, oh, I want that again, I want that again. So will the dog. The dog is thinking, oh, I want that again, I want that again. I get the treat. So if I sit, when they tell me to sit, I might get the treat this time. And, it's very, they know what they're doing,
Yeah, it's very calculating in how things go about with specific games,
And so if you have an addictive personality, this is just
Yeah.
the perfect way to suck someone
Well,
in.
and again, it's not to say, that everyone's like this. There's people that can have certain control, within playing these type of games within these like structures, and that's it's not to say anything about them. It's just, this is just my experience, So it's just simply based on my addictive nature. And the underlining issue is basically why I use it as a crutch, to play these as an escape. And
I think you're being way too nice about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because I see how it's hurt my loved one. I have no sympathy for these.
well, I was going to say, within
places.
the industry, they create this kind of, to me, it kind of looks like with Overwatch, for example. It's very Pixar-esque with a deep background.
Pretty devious. It's very kid friendly.
They have shorts
Cute
on
and
different characters that you can watch online.
colorful, candy colored.
Yeah, with backstories, and there's always some sort of expansion or DLC or a new character that unlocks with new emojis or kind of like taunts and whatever the case is.
Yeah, they make
unlock.
it very just likable. And when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this looks really neat.
Yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
Character creation, like in terms of who they created as these individuals that you play. But you do know it is very, like you said, it's not seen in that negative light as addiction, as gambling, or whatever the case is, which is something that they can definitely get away with and market it towards. Because if you go online right now, I mean, there's people who are having like videos just on the loot crate opening itself, not the gameplay, just let's see what kind of stuff I can unlock and see what I can get, you know. So there's people that are watching views on that, So for myself, it just wasn't a good combination, and I knew I had to quit it. So I ended up selling the game, probably getting some other. I think I got maybe, I'm not sure what I used with it. So,
well, I don't know, but I know for a while you were still playing games, like even up until like last month.
Yeah. So I think what happened was there was a situation, I think, at work where I just was becoming very negative. It came out in some sort of negative way.
I think you were just getting burnt out. You needed some time off.
Yeah, some time off. Some
like anybody,
Some mental break from work. And during that time, there was this huge gaming company that came out with new news that something was happening, and financially within my means, I was like, hey, I'm gonna get that for the holidays. This is something I wanted, and it's something that we can play. Now, we do play games together, and there are co-op games, couch buddy games, and they're really fun. We had some really great times and frustrating times, with it. But it was the first time in a long time that I remember actually having fun with someone sitting there with me, sharing that moment. And that's where I think that when you're playing video games in this kind of instance, you're really getting to experience what it should be, that kind of new but kind of old kind of feeling
That
that
nostalgic type of feeling.
of when games were shared,
Yeah.
and it was less about the game but the experience that you could share together, and that's what we had fun playing.
And we would play for maybe like an hour.
Yeah, and
something.
then be done with it
Right.
because we had our fills of all the dang kind of stupid AI programming, platforming that was just so freaking hard.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and I believe that's how it should have been and how it was meant to be, not what it's reverted into in the gaming industry, which is you're not interacting with the person. And I get it. There's games of all different sorts, but for me, that's what I was missing, And long story short, when I took time off to do my mental break, to kind of heal, do some reading, I used that entire week not to really do that, but to kind of play games, and that's what I did. You saw that. You probably didn't say anything at that time, but that would unfold later on. That would come back up to be a subject of conversation. So fast forward a few months, this fall, this company is going to put out an item that you really want. And I remember hearing about the news, and the local game retailer was going to have a pre-order for it. So I was getting ready to get dressed, and I was like, hey, I'm going to run out to the game store. Oh, by the way, I'm going to pre-order this brand new system. I think it's something, I forget what I said. I probably said, like, it's something we could utilize, made whatever excuse.
Well, yeah, I remember you coming to me and you're saying, I want to talk to you about this. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited. He's being an adult and he's bringing up, a subject for us to talk about and be communicative about. And he said, what do you think about me getting this gaming console or the system that's coming out? And I said, after a while of me thinking about it, I said, I just don't know if it's a good idea for you to do this. Simply because this is a chance to reflect on if it's something that we really need, or if it's something that we're going to be using as a crutch, later.
And in my mindset, where I was in that point, I wasn't doing the work, that I got all these books for, I wasn't reading it, Instead, I was like, yeah, I'll work on it, but I never got around to it. And instead, what did I do? I did end up playing more video games than I should have, because here's the thing. I work a very mentally taxing kind of role in my corporate job. So, of course, when you get home from work, you want to unwind, or if you fall asleep on the couch, which I often do, or whatever the case is, you want to use that few times that you have at the end of a long day to just kind of do whatever it is that you want to do.
Right.
And sometimes I would find myself wanting to play those games rather than be like, hey, rather than just play those games, or rather than just, do this or that, just relax,
you just want to
chill out and just,
numb out, basically.
Just focus on yourself. You don't need those side distractions. But I found myself that I would gravitate towards that. So when that subject came up, in my mind, it was set like, you don't want me having this because, you feel that I'm going to do this or that. And in my mind, I felt like I had all the control in the world, that I could control myself, says the person who was very addicted to games and, certain things. I felt firmly that I could do this. And at that point, not at that point, but in retrospect, I sound like an addict. I have control. I could do this. I have the means to, I'm not going to fall down the same trap again. It's not the same similar thing. I can make all the excuses, but, I got mad at you because you said, hey, we should think about this. And it probably wasn't the right time.
I didn't say, no, you can't do this, because it's not my place. Honestly, you can spend your money however you want to do that. I mean, that's on you, but for me, I just didn't want to co-sign on something that I could see would harm you, in the future. And even though I kind of wanted it to, because I like playing games and I thought it would
Yeah.
be super fun and it's colorful and cute and whatever and
Hmm.
neat and there's so many neat things you could do, but I have to also think, look, this is not healthy. And the thing is that if it got to the point where later on down the road, maybe it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not the right time.
Yeah. So I guess what we're trying to say was there was something that came out that I immediately wanted to jump on. And there were a lot of issues that I had to really take care of myself. And I wasn't dedicating the time to really, do the work. I let other things like work or whatever become the excuse. And the timing of it, it wouldn't have meshed well because I just invested a lot of time in doing something when I should have done the work on myself and I didn't do. So it was less about, not being able to get it. We could have totally gotten it any point in second in time. But it just wasn't the most appropriate thing. It's kind of like, hearing someone passing and you kind of talk about that subject or you kind of make light of it or try to it's just not appropriate. Yeah, so instead I took that defensively.
Yeah.
Instead I made it into like, well, you're saying I can't have it and this and that, and it became like you don't want me to be happy. It became into this whole big mess when it really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And it's not to say like, down the line that we wouldn't be able to make this purchase, that we wouldn't be able to share it and just have fun playing it like how we have been. It was me not accepting the fact that, hey, I'm not saying you're not purchasing it now. It's maybe down the line, we'll see how we feel. And if that's the case, we can make that purchase in the future. If that is the right time.
If we still feel like we want it that
Yeah.
bad, and if it's something that we
Right.
feel like we could do together
And I didn't
in a
real-
controlled, boundaried
Yeah.
environment.
And I didn't realize that then, so I got very mad. You saw
Oh,
the
yeah.
worst in me. It was like I was I was cracking out. I was just like an addict.
I'm
Just-
sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but
Yeah,
I just think it's
it-
funny how you said it.
Yeah, I was crazy. Like the way I describe it was, I wasn't in my right frame of mind. I could see myself like hovering in a different third person perspective, and I saw myself saying these things. I was yelling. I was saying like, cursing. It was awful.
And it kind of goes
And I
to
came
show,
down from that afterwards, but I was
Yeah.
like, wow, where did this all come from?
Yeah, but that shows you that addiction is so strong, and that you'll fight tooth
Yeah.
and nail for it because you feel so strongly about it. It's so ingrained in you
Yeah.
to want to do this, to have that substance, whatever it is.
Especially in someone like me, but that's where, I wish it would have came, or I would have just taken that words like, when you told me like, hey, let's just kind of back off of this and think about this
Right.
for a later time. And it should have been where, okay, yeah, I may be disappointed, but why should I kind of be disappointed when this person has the best interest in me? And, you're right. Like, there's other priorities in my life, like learning how to kind of deal with work and not being stressed out from that, then to, hey, I need a video game, console.
For me, I feel like it showed me personally, like myself, how much work I've put in and how it's paying off for me, because still being a codependent person, I mean, I don't think that's ever going to change. I think you have to fight with it every day. But it's like I was able to kind of stand my ground and just
Yeah.
kind of put up my boundaries. And even though you were kind of like going off, it was like, I'm not going to be treated disrespectfully. I'm not, I was able to communicate myself
Yeah.
and be clear about it instead of just like disassociating or, just
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, whatever, just do what you want, fine, just give in,
And of course, that's not who I am, but I do want to apologize that whole thing even played out that way.
I know.
But I do want to say, like, there are other things that I never would have thought that I would have interest in. Now, again, growing up in the environment that I did, I never truly cooked for myself or even thought about, like, I didn't even know how to cook like eggs
You
and bacon.
you couldn't
I
even make a
just
bed, or like, yeah, like there was
yeah.
things you were not taught how to do
It was
everyday tasks
yeah.
for yourself.
Where kids do understand those everyday tasks. I never had to because like
Mom did everything.
right. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about laundry, whatever the case was, until we moved in together. And unfortunately, you had to see that,
Yeah.
all those like inabilities to do these things. But I found out, through having different interests and kind of discovering, and it was kind of funny. We talked about this, I think, a few years ago. It's like, what are your interests? And I remember when you asked me that question, I honestly couldn't come up with any idea
Other
of,
than video games.
yeah. But like within the past few years, I discovered like I love cooking.
Yeah.
I definitely want to see this progress into maybe something more. But I've been cooking for like
Yeah,
a
he
year.
cooks most solely all the meals that we have, for like the last year, which is before we've been together for almost 8 years, and I cooked exclusively for most of that time
Yeah.
until up until this past year. So
Like I find it rewarding, but I find it also amazing to see what I can create, and I'm making things that I never would have thought I would make.
yeah,
Like, we would make sushi, or I'll make like lobster bisque, or different types of like dishes that are like, I wouldn't say complex, but it does require like some sort of like, you have to pay attention to it.
like
Or
a technique kind of.
yeah, or it can burn, or it could just be overcooked, so you have to be on it. And I discovered that I have a passion for it, and I really enjoy it.
And he's really good at it. It's so delicious.
And I find the reward and enjoyment in going out and getting all these special ingredients, that I fortunately can, with our current financial situation, that I can, get these spices or get this cut of meat or try new things, And
Yeah.
to me, it's really awesome, and finding about, where this type of, meat or food comes from and what goes behind it and the practice. And, I'm really appreciative of like being able to discover this, to working with my hands. I always wanted to, but I found out like I have an interest in like, hobbies and model kits, and it's something to do, but I really like to work with my hands.
Yeah.
So, it's fun stuff that doesn't require for myself to be so engaged and spend so much time like how I have been in certain past hobbies, and it's rewarding.
I think it's kind of like being able to find a something that keeps you present and in the moment and moving forward, instead of something that keeps you in a totally different world, like numb and just out of it, and
Yeah.
just not in your own body.
That's the thing. Yeah, I would numb out where I wouldn't engage in conversation. I was just solely focused on the screen, like anybody would who's deeply focused on it, But it was almost like we're at work, I'm focused on the screen. I have my music playing. I'm in my own world. And that's what it was like with these video games. I couldn't put it down. I just had to continuously play it. So that was the scary part. And I just want to say it wasn't where I wasn't productive at home. I worked a certain set schedule. I was because I can't, the level of detail in what I do, it kind of reflects off in what I do here too at home. I'm very meticulous about certain things and not so much about other stuff. But I cook, I take care of our pets, I make sure, I do the laundry.
He has certain chores that he has to do. We both have chores, like it should be in any home.
Like I do that on a daily basis, But then when it comes to like incorporating like, let's say, certain type of games or the addictive nature, it just didn't benefit me, in this. And it's not to say that, again, we touch up on it, that, these issues won't come up again. It's just, hey, being better prepared and understanding that you're prone to certain things, and let's see if you can come to terms to work with it to make yourself into a better wholesome person, a healthy person.
And I think it's important too, to now that we have the chance as adults and we're away from our toxic guardians and the people who kind of ruined our childhoods, we can focus on ourselves. I mean, for now, we don't have any children. So we can focus on ourselves and kind of put the energy into finding out who we are.
Yeah.
They were never given the option to find that out when we were kids. We never were told it's okay to focus on yourself. It's okay to find out what you like.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you like? It was always about to help me do what I want you to do what I say to do.
Being dragged through the mud and whatever our parents' struggles and conflicts were, and we just had to endure and deal with that.
Right.
We never had a chance to really discover ourselves or discover our interests or just be that happy person. In my case, like to discover my inner child and just kind of flesh out from that, just kind of be
to be able to play.
Yeah.
Like, besides not just be numb and play a video game, but to actually be present in your body and play and do things you want to do that make you happy, that make you feel joy, instead of just that numb feeling of, I'm here and I'm temporarily getting stimulated, but, I'm not really feeling any joy in my life, ultimately, from this, outside of this.
And, in this specific subject, video games, they're one thing, but it's not to demonize, like, saying that I guess what I'm trying to say is, I didn't have any sort of boundaries and my priorities were elsewhere. And I guess where I'm trying to go with this is that, for the first time, I'm in a much happier place than where I've ever been. And if that means that I have to continuously discover and try new things, to see what works and what doesn't work, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in that stagnant pool of just like, I'm not progressing anywhere and why am I not happy? Like how I was for the most majority of my 20 some years, where I invested all my time into something when I really should have, tried to discover myself. And it's just such a rewarding thing right now and how I feel. So.
And I think that's what happens once you get past, like I said before, like being traumatized by bringing up your past. Once you get through that and you get your crying out and you get your anger out, and all that stuff that happens when you get re-traumatized, when you start to revisit this stuff, then you can start to heal. It's kind of like when you have an infected wound and it's got all this nasty pus and gross stuff in it. Once you get all that stuff out, that's when the wound can heal over and you can feel better, Yeah. So it's difficult. Yeah, you're going to have CPTSD and you're going to get triggered, but you're still going to have to work on it every single day. And I think I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about like anybody who's had to deal with this. So, real quick, we'll wrap it up, but was there anything else you wanted to say about any of this?
No, I know I'm not the only person that kind of has gone through this. So, hopefully through all my babbling,
it's not babbling.
Throughout all of this, like somebody can pull some sort of element from it, or if you can connect or truly understand or know what it's like to kind of go through this, like hopefully you can feel that you're not alone in this, that, hey, you can overcome whatever it is that you're going through. And, together, with a good positive kind of group or, whatever your circle is, I just hope that you can know that there is a way where you can be happy, where you can be healthy, and where, you're simply just not alone. I've been there, we've been there, and you can definitely get over a lot of this addiction.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to kind of go over some of the books that you have read so far?
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate, we have Conquering Shame and Codependency by Darlene Lancer. Again, it has a lot of great kind of self-evaluation kind of exercises that you can do, kind of gauge and see where you're at in the progress of this. It's a great read. The other one that I'm reading right now, The New Codependency by Melody Beattie. It's very interesting because she has a very, interesting kind of life upbringing too. So she kind of throws it all out there. So you can kind of maybe relate or understand that this is someone that has gone through different types of form of addictions and codependency as well. So a lot of great examples and insight with that one as well. And you probably heard some of these topics or some of these subjects and before, and they may reference to similar books, but The Disease to Please by Harriet B. Breaker. Another good read. I haven't finished it myself, but I'm trying to pick up more of these books whenever I can find time to read it. And again, by Melody Beattie, we have Codependent No More. I believe this one also has a workbook that comes with it. So if you can get the book and workbook, that's hopefully another great source that we can all kind of take that venture down and, hopefully find some benefits in getting a little bit more insight and help, from these.
Yeah, and another great thing, journaling.
Yeah.
Journaling is the best. It's really helpful, and I know it can be kind of daunting. Again, it's just you and your thoughts and your own emotions, and that can be very triggering too. But I think it's one of the best things out there. There's so many things you can do. You can write letters to people that you'll never send. You can put your own thoughts down. It's just you and no one else but you, that's going to be reading this and doing this. So it's whatever you want it to be,
I was just also going to add to that. In a lot of these books, too, they have great exercise examples, such as journaling, like you mentioned. In the book by Darlene Lancer, towards the end of the chapters, they have a lot of different exercises, such as journaling and things you can kind of do, like to get to know your inner critic. You can kind of interview your devalued self, do different things related to your, process and journey into trying to heal yourself.
Yeah. So that's definitely some great resources. Of course, online, there's some really good people out there. I really like on YouTube, her name is Chris Godinez. And she is, I believe, a licensed practitioner or counselor of psychology. And she's just really good. I found a lot of her stuff very beneficial. Let me see. I think the name of her channel is We Need to Talk. So I think if you just look that up, We Need to Talk, and her name is spelled Kris Godinez, which I believe is Go. Oh gosh, I'm not exactly, but it's starts with a G. But she talks a lot about narcissistic abuse, borderline abuse. Just she's really good. There's also Richie Grannon, the Spartan Life Coach. He's really good on YouTube as well. So if you're the kind of person where you like to listen to things instead of reading, those are some good resources to kind of start off with. But there's so many good people out there online and resources. Psychology Today is a really good website to go to as well. They have tons and tons of articles on emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse, BPD abuse. So I think we're going to go ahead and end it there today. Thank you so much for putting up with our long videos.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll hopefully do this again, maybe on a different subject.
Sure.
It was really fun having you talk to me today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for just giving me the outlet and the time to kind of share my experience.
Yay! Now cook me dinner.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.